This episode of the podcast is brought to you by our partner, Audible.
Yes, it is. So we are partnered with Audible. That means that if you are looking just to check it out, you don't want to put your card in and just take the dive. You can get 30 days for free on us. If you go to audibletrial.com/JATG or click the link down below, you'll be taken there. You can sign up for 30 days for free and just test it out. Like there's a lot of stuff on there that you can get for free, a lot of Audible exclusives. But what I really like about Audible is that out of the hundreds and thousands of audiobooks that they have, if you decide to purchase something, that is yours forever. Like if you decide not to carry on your subscription or you want to take a break or whatever it is, you can always go back and listen to that book whenever you want through the app on the internet. Doesn't matter because it's yours. So once again, you can get that for 30 days for free on us if you go to audibletrial.com/JATG.
All right. If the streaming gods are blessing us today, we are live right now, Johnny and the Greg, and I am so excited because we have a guest. Greg, who we have here?
We do have a guest. I was very excited. So this is Daphne. So Daphne and I used to teach together. It's been 7 years since I left the classroom. And so John and I were talking about topics for this week. And we got to the point where we were just looking at like what's going on in education. And I was like, I bet I could get a couple teachers to come on. So reached out to Daphne. She said yes. Thank you very much, Daphne, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
We do have another guest that's pending. I guess there may be some inclement weather that might be keeping her. So if she shows up, we will let her in and just jump into the conversation from there. Before we get started, I do want to make a statement that Daphne is here as all of her opinions are her own and do not necessarily meet the public view or whatever of her district. Where are you at right now anyway? I don't even know.
I'm in South Milwaukee.
She's in South Milwaukee. So South Milwaukee, if you are listening, South Milwaukee School District, Daphne's here as like a person of her own, not a representative of your school district at all. So if you don't like what she says, you can piss off. So anyway, yeah, that felt good. So yeah, we're gonna talk about. Yeah, I do have some pent up rage from my time in education. John's heard most of it. So, so the first thing we wanted to kind of jump into is looking at the school shootings that are happening all over the country right now. And to this point, I did look up a little bit of data. Mass shootings, and by definition, a mass shooting is 4 or more victims in a shooting. There have been more mass shootings than there have been days of the year so far.
Yeah.
So I don't even know.
That was shocking when you said that to me. I actually didn't believe it. I had to look it up for myself. I was like, there's no way. Now, the only thing I did not understand is that USA or world?
Oh, it's definitely USA.
Just us.
Yeah,
just us.
School shootings don't happen.
That is
anywhere else.
Unbelievable, really.
So that, and that's where we say this is a uniquely American problem, and a lot of people get bent out of shape about that, but it's true. Like mass shootings don't happen anywhere else. So I am gonna bring down here, I swear, after I do this full setup. So mass shootings aren't new to the US. They, like, when I was in college is when Columbine happened, and that kind of seemed to kick it all off. It's not that they didn't happen before, but they definitely weren't that high in number. And so we've got a whole generation of kids now, and a generation of people, like if it's an adult attacking a school, usually that adult was also raised in that environment of where school shootings are a thing. What is happening in the classrooms now and like training for you guys? Has it changed? Do you feel like it's gotten better? And do you feel like it's making a difference?
Well, so I started teaching in 2005.
Mhm.
And in my first school district, we did not do any school shooter, active intruder drills or anything.
Yeah.
I taught in a town where there was a nuclear power plant, and we did a meltdown drill once.
Okay.
So I was like,
was it duck and cover, or was it something different?
No, we like left the building and got on buses and drove away. It's like a
Oh,
whole
wow.
Wow, okay.
coordinated- Yeah. I didn't know they did that.
Better.
Right. I was like, well, okay. We weren't gonna make it, but like, okay, we tried something. And then I want to say probably around 2011, I felt like we started doing more of the active intruder drills.
Mhm.
And it started just like, get out of sight, turn off your lights, all of that. Then we moved to learn how to barricade your door. We learned how to, or they encouraged us to have things to throw at intruders in
Mhm.
case they were to get in. If I remember, Greg, you had soup in a desk drawer.
Yes,
You
I
threatened to throw soup.
Yep, I kept a couple like the big chunky soup cans. One, if I forgot my lunch, that was kind of the start of it. But then I usually kept about 3 or 4 in there, because if an intruder broke through the door, the last thing, I mean, and I had some athletes in some of the classrooms that I taught in, and the last thing a active shooter wants is like an all-state fast pitch coming at his head with a Campbell soup can. So that was part of the strategy. I picked that up from an elementary school teacher who had 40 cans in her room and made it
Seems
so like
overkill.
seemed like overkill, but she's like, they're little kids, and if they're just chucking cans left and right, it would cause enough of a distraction that maybe an adult could get in there and do something.
What do you have?
So textbooks, I don't keep soup.
Oh, you're
in
like Jason
boxes.
Bourne. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so pretty much I have like all my college textbooks on a big bookshelf in the back of my room, and it's kind of where my door is. And so we always talk about like, okay, we could stand these tables up, because I have like 2-person tables. We stand those up. If somebody got in, we're just going to start chucking books. Like that's our option. And like I have to have this conversation with 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds every year.
Mhm.
When we have the drill. And we have classrooms, a couple classrooms in our school that are mostly windows. And this last fall, actually, we had a situation. Our school went on lockdown. It was not a drill. And I was in one of those windowed classrooms, and I had a girl in tears. Like, I don't know what to do. There's nowhere for me to
Mhm.
go. And I was like, yep, you're right. I don't know what
Wow.
I'm supposed to do with you. And we have all these like codes that they're supposed to say to release us. And part of me thinks like, okay, we're preparing. But part of me thinks the number of these school shootings that are perpetrated by students, they know what we're doing.
Mhm.
We've telegraphed the plan. So it feels a little odd, because it's not like a fire. Like you do a fire drill, the fire doesn't know that that's your drill, right? Like it can't outsmart you.
Right.
Like we've been through layers of trainings where it's like, oh, if the fire alarm gets pulled, this lockdown trumps the fire alarm,
Mhm.
because it could be a fire alarm to drag you outside.
Yeah, right.
Like that's all the stuff that goes through your head, and it's a lot. And now I have my own kids. I have a 7th grader and a 4th grader. And when they started school, I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this right away at 4,
Mhm.
at 4K. They're learning this.
Yeah. How do you feel when you nowadays, how it's so prevalent? It seems like, God, what is it? 130 mass shootings to 92 days so
Yeah.
far? That's
Unless something changed since Friday, which it could
Yeah.
have.
Yes.
That was the number I sent you. Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel when you first wanted to become a teacher? You knew you weren't going into essentially a dangerous situation, and now you guys are targets. Like schools are targets now. So how has that affected your mindset in terms of are you hyper aware now? Are you a little stressed out every day going to work?
I'd say I'm a little more aware of like the kids who are super disconnected. And if they're acting really different, or where their behavior feels off, like I feel like I'm more paying attention to stuff like that. So I'm a high school math teacher, and like thinking about people's like feelings and how they might, be behaving in a certain day is not usually my norm. I'm not thinking about anybody's feelings or emotions ever.
Because you got to
Not
keep
really.
them test scores up, right? I mean, that's
Right.
really,
It's just like not my personality either. But to now, like, I feel like that's what I'm more heightened about, is just looking for like, oh, you know what? That kid did say this today. Like, should I tell somebody that kid? I should just tell somebody that kid said that thing today, because it felt weird. Every time it comes up, anytime that there might be a student alluding to wanting to hurt someone, having a weapon, having access to a weapon, like, I forget it. I'm just going to tell the counselor and the social worker and all the administrators and get as many people on that email chain as I can, rather than, waiting on it. I feel like, so Greg, you said you were in college when Columbine happened. I was a high schooler. So for me, the shift was we couldn't take our backpacks to class. Okay. Like, I grew up in the middle of a cornfield though. So like everybody's house had some sort of weapon, but it was all hunting and, whatever. But now it feels very different, that if people have weapons in their homes, they're not just for that purpose anymore. And like, that's been a huge change in 20 years, I think.
What do you mean they're not just for that purpose anymore?
I don't feel like, I shouldn't say I don't. I feel like more people have, and I don't have data on it, so shoot me if I'm wrong.
No, we're not here to be perfect. We're just
but it seems as if there's more people who have weapons in their homes, not just because they
are a hunter. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I would kind of agree with that. And I don't know if it's
too.
because I don't know if it's because I'm more conscious of it now.
Right. That makes me wonder too.
But when I was in high school, and that was early to mid 90s, like I knew friends who, like, everybody's dad hunted. I mean, and they did too. So there were shotguns, there were rifles, and those are the ones you knew about. I never really knew friends that had like lots of handguns, or if they did, their dad had like an old Western revolver or something like that. You didn't hear about people keeping a Glock in their house unless their dad was a cop.
Right. Like those were things I only heard about on NYPD Blue when I watched that with my parents.
Yeah. And now, I mean, as an adult, I have friends, they have multiple AR rifles in their house, and they've got all these little tricks, add-ons, and here's the extended magazine for it, and here's the extra arm thing. I mean, all these, the flashlight or the laser scope underlay. I know people that have those in multiple, where I never knew that before. Like, I don't know if it just didn't exist, or was it not?
Right. Did access change? I mean, I know
access did change.
I know that laws changed, right?
Yes. Yeah. The repeal of the whatever gun act. I can't remember which one it was, but it made them a lot easier to get. And then manufacturers just started putting them out, and then everybody went, well, I want one. And you know what? I've shot one. Hell yeah, they're fun to shoot. Do I need to own one to protect myself from the government, or if someone's coming into my house? I don't think so. I mean,
if you're trying to protect yourself from the government, that's kind of a losing battle.
It really is.
Like, if you're going to protect yourself from the government, they have tanks.
Yeah, they have tanks. They have drones.
They have drones. They have, I don't know, people that like do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a living. So
trained professionals.
Yeah.
I'm friends with one of those trained professionals, and he and I have had that similar conversation. He's like, oh, when they come to take your house or something, I'm like, what do you think I'm going to do with it? What do you think you're going to do with it? I mean, and he's armed to the teeth at his little house. I know he is. Yeah. And I'm like, you know better than I do what they could do if they really want to get your stuff. I mean,
yeah. Have you, because since this is heightened, do you or have you thought about owning a gun, learning how to use it? How do you feel? Let's just answer that question first.
Yeah, we had one for a while. There was a
Okay.
handgun in our house for a while. It was always in a safe. I
Mhm.
shot it one time, slide, whatever the stupid injury that you get when you aren't careful and you put your
Oh
finger
yeah,
in
yeah.
Oh, the
lock.
slide pinched you.
The pinched.
Yeah.
Yep, did that.
Okay.
And I was like, no, thank you. I don't ever need to do this again. But like, I know how. I've done it and I did not enjoy it. And I think that's my biggest beef with and maybe you guys will get there, but the whole like, we'll just arm teachers.
That's what
I
I was.
don't,
That
I
was my
don't
next
enjoy
question.
that. I do not
The next
enjoy it.
question.
I don't want to do it. I am not trained to hurt those children.
No.
Because if it is one of the kids who I've had in class, I'm not trained to hurt that kid.
Mhm.
Even if, Greg, you and I know we've had some students I did not enjoy, but I'm
Yes.
still not trained to hurt them.
Right.
What about like
I don't want to be.
right? No, and you shouldn't. You became a teacher not to go in conflict with your students.
Mhm.
It was more or less to broaden their minds and help them achieve wonderful things. But do you feel like maybe you should start taking self-defense classes if it ever came to a wrestling match or I don't know. The things that I feel a teacher needs to prepare for now are so not being a teacher.
Right.
And
Have you
Wow.
taken the CPI stuff?
What's that, Greg? What's that?
Which is that one?
Okay, so CPI is crisis prevention intervention.
Oh,
when
yeah,
I was
one
a
time.
special ed teacher, it was like so it was made by a former he's either like a county sheriff or a chief of police or something like that, who got out of that game and went in. He created this entire curriculum that's made for teachers and schools of how to safely restrain students.
Yeah, it was restraint and how to release
Yeah.
a restraint. Yeah, I did do
Yep,
that one.
it works okay on elementary students,
Yeah.
or if you have a real size advantage over a student. I know you don't.
Yeah, Johnny, so you don't know this. I'm about 5'1".
Oh,
So
okay.
in general, all of my students are taller than me. They like to tell me how much taller they are. But yeah, I'm never, even if I were to go through, and I'm sure I could learn all sorts of things, I
It's not
could
gonna work.
easily be overpowered.
It's not going to work. Yeah.
They could just
Unle-
hold something over my head and I would.
Jiu-jitsu would be
Unless-
different.
No,
Yeah.
no, because there is still size. Like she would have to be a lifelong jujitsu master to overcome the size difference. And I know you got your daughter in jujitsu
No,
right now, and I know they're trying to
that's not
preach
what I'm talking about. No, I'm not talking about a 250-pound guy coming after you. I'm talking
But-
about a high schooler. I'm sorry, are you in high
Oh,
school?
but and
Okay.
that's how big high schoolers are.
250 pounds?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely,
like
John.
our linemen are easily 6'4", 225 and muscles.
Okay.
Right? Like they're
Okay.
wrestlers, they're high school athletes.
It is
Okay.
18-year-old muscle coming at you.
Okay.
And even if this is the
And
outlier kid,
Caffeine fuel.
yeah,
caffeine fueled up.
if it's the outlier non-athlete, which sometimes that's the case, but that kid is still going to be able to overpower a lot of the teachers in the building. Like some of the male teachers, maybe not. The high school wrestling coach, no, he can get in there and tie him up. But these kids aren't attacking with melee weapons.
No,
They're coming in with guns. So that's the other thing of, there's school resource officers. Every school I think I worked at had a police officer there at least part-time. The talk about arming teachers, the one thing I've heard is that every gun owner knows somebody that owns a gun that you wish that motherfucker didn't have a gun. Like that one guy is like, he shouldn't have a gun and he has one. So take that and multiply it across a school with all these teachers. I know teachers that should never have carried a gun. Like they're going to be more of a danger to themselves and others because they don't have the training. There were some former police officers that became teachers that I knew of. I'm sure they're not there anymore. They have since retired from that job. Or former military guys that became teachers who so that's maybe one extra gun in the building. And if you're lucky enough to be in the same hallway when it happens, they're going to have to abandon their class to run to wherever the danger is, you're still going to lose a bunch of kids. Like that negates the good guy with a gun argument for me, is that for the good guy with a gun to get there, there's still going to be at least 4 casualties.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, not to mention like when you hole up in your classroom, you have to also make the choice of like, do we stay here? Do we leave?
Mhm.
Like, I can't even begin to run that calculus in my head of like who, and if there were people in the building who have guns, now I'm thinking about like, where are they in relation to what I hear? Is this the only thing that I hear? Are there others? And then am I staying in my classroom with these students? Do I have any students who can't get to where they need to be on their own? You know, do I have students on crutches? Do I have a student in a wheelchair? Any of that? Do I have a student having like a full-blown meltdown? You know, do I have an autistic kid who, you know, is not capable of kind of processing what's going on in this moment?
Yeah.
And then, you know, trying to figure out what to do next.
How often do you guys practice this?
So it's less often than a fire drill, which is weird.
That is weird.
Like if you've been in a school, most of the things in a school aren't going to burn fast, but state law says we do them. So when we were teaching in my last district, I want to say we did them every quarter.
So 4 times in a school year
or more. We did a lot
for active shooter.
Yeah. We did like PD practice. We had like, remember they brought in the police officers.
I remember they
blanks. Terrifying. By the way,
I remember they brought in one guy, and it was a plainclothes cop.
Yeah.
And he was walking he's walking the halls. I wasn't there for the blanks one. That was the year after I left.
It was not cool.
But he was walking the halls and just waiting to see if anybody would stop him and say, "Excuse me, sir," because he didn't have a guest pass on or anything like that.
We were supposed to approach a stranger.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have a pass. Like he didn't get.
It was a dude. I mean, guy in his late 20s, early 30s, wearing a baseball cap and an overstuffed jacket, just walking up and down the halls. And I remember they watched him on the school cameras walk around. He went into the library and like walked around, poked his head in some classrooms, and then left. And not one teacher stopped him. Like nobody had stopped him and said, "Excuse me, sir, are you where you need to be?" And then,
in all fairness to all of us who were doing our jobs that day,
Yeah.
We were making copies. We had 5 minutes between classes to get to where we were supposed to be. I don't have time to confront a stranger.
Do most schools, and when you guys were there, did they have a security person?
They have a police liaison officer who did not walk the halls.
I see.
He had an office off the main office.
And he just sat there.
Well, he didn't just sit there. I'm not going to throw that guy under the bus or that woman under the bus. When they were there, they were actively dealing with other issues.
Okay.
Like their door was closed most of the time because they, had to search a locker, or there was a fight, or, there was some kind of social media post with two students, bickering or nipping at each other that he had to bring them in and be like, what's going on? Is this going to turn violent? So they were really busy already because honestly, doing like people would think would be a guidance counselor kind of job, but guidance counselors don't do a lot of that social emotional things in a high school. They're busy doing test scores and trying to get kids in college and scholarships and all that other stuff. So it fell to the police liaison to kind of do this kind of social emotional piece. And so, I don't.
So in my school now, we have an officer, and he walks the halls all day.
Okay, so that changed.
He has his taser, his weapon, his whatever, like
the big vest full of stuff.
Big vest full of all the things, the radio, and he can talk to. We have an SRO in our middle school as well, and if there's fights or whatever, like. That's the first person that you want to show up. They're not always the first person there, because if they're across the building, like if a fight breaks out, we just leave our classrooms if it's near us and run, pull people.
How big is your school?
If a fight breaks out, that's okay. So it's not you guys are told, or you guys have been told that if a fight breaks out, not to get involved.
No, don't get in the way. Because
what if it's two girls fighting?
Doesn't
Either
matter.
Can't
way,
just break
so
them apart. I don't.
I find so I did that once. I picked up
Yeah.
a girl.
Okay.
That was actually kind of fun. I mean, because like I felt like, okay, well, I stopped this. I usually go not because I think that I'm going to stop the fight, because again, I'll just duck. But my goal is to usually get all of the recorders of the fight to go to class.
Okay.
Go get out
Okay.
of the hallway. You do not need to be here. This is not a boxing ring. Go,
Yeah.
go. Like, you don't need to be here. We actually, for a while, last month, I think, had ninth grade boys. God bless them.
Mhm.
Ninth grade boys who were staging fake fights in bathrooms and recording them. But then
Okay.
one kid got jacked in the nose and wanted to like complain to the assistant principals, and he's like, "You did this to yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I don't no, sir."
Oh, good. Good.
But yeah, so
Good.
like that's all happening still, in the midst of who knows whatever else could be going down.
Yeah. I remember in the one we were at, I think it was my first year there, students honestly had a fight club.
Yes, they did.
Mhm.
I remember that.
And it was taking place off campus, but it was an organized, they had a fight club.
Oh my gosh. The fact that you even knew about it means they didn't know the first rule of
But
Fight
the
Club.
idiots were talking about it at home. You come to
Yes.
fight club tonight? I'm just like,
Yeah.
one, you're breaking the rules. Two,
Yeah,
what the hell?
Yeah.
I feel like you may have made like a statement about that in our class once.
Oh, I think I did.
I believe
Yeah.
the first rule of Fight Club is that nobody talks about
Yeah.
it. What are you doing?
And of course, and we taught freshmen, so they all went, "Oh, I can tell you about it," and they all talked about it. So yeah, there was
dying to.
but I mean, teachers, like when I was teaching, like you said, John, your first instinct is to get in between, break up the fight. They're like, no, you don't do that. One, because you're putting yourself in danger, which I thought was like, well, better me than the kid. No. And two, like if during the breaking up of the fight, I put hands on a kid, like in their face or whatever, then I'm putting my own professional career at risk to, I mean, and let's say it is, John, two girls. I'm trying to break up a fight between two girls. I go like this and put my hands just out. Somebody runs into my hand. I'm in trouble. If you get my meaning.
I know, I totally get your meaning. I'm flabbergasted that we've gotten this stupid.
That is what it has come to.
I'm sorry if that offends anybody out there, but that's just dumb. Like, if you're gonna somewhere along the line there, and I'm going off on a tangent, but somewhere along the line there has to be some sort of a common sense law that for some reason no one's ever created, where they go, well, he was breaking up a fight, it's okay. Anyway, let's stick to topic.
Well, you're talking about common sense, which is going to bring us to the next point. Because what you're talking about is like there should be that common sense where people go, we're just going to let teachers be teachers. They went to college for this. Some of them went to a lot of college for this. And so they should know what they're doing. But in some states, they've taken some of that power away from the teachers, and they said, the books that you have in your classroom are no longer valid. We don't agree with those books. So they're going to ban them.
When you say we don't agree,
when I say it's the parents, it's the grand we.
I see. Okay.
Which maybe it's 5 parents that are trying to represent the whole, but it's a group of parents that have lobbied politicians, and now the politicians are involved, and they say, we're going to take away your ability to bring books into your classroom. The great state of Florida, they now have to register all of their books, any book that you have in your classroom, along with any kind of visual. So like a poster or something you have hanging on your wall. So Daphne, I'm sure you have on your wall somewhere formulas, mathematical formulas that are there. In Florida, math teachers have to take a picture, fill out a form, send that to the state so the state can approve that poster as appropriate for a classroom.
I have so many questions about that. Number one, who has the time in the state Department of Education to take care of that? We can barely get our freaking licenses updated on the years that they're due. But I digress. The lack of trust in the
Yep.
fact that like I went to college, I have a degree in mathematics, I know what I'm doing is shockingly low in some area, like very low. Like, are you sure? Yeah, I've been doing this for a while.
Mhm.
Also, like I took algebra in 1996, so I'm pretty confident I can teach it still.
Mhm.
Thanks for asking. But yeah, the books stresses me out a little bit because I have younger kids. Like I just ask them what they're reading.
Mhm.
What are you reading? Oh, let me see that book if I have questions. That's like it's simple. Um, yeah.
Some of
What
the
what are
Florida
the what are the
also
books that
banned
they're
all their
reading?
math textbooks, so I got a lot of questions about Florida. Their books.
Oh, don't we all have questions about Florida?
yeah, great
So,
vacation spots, but
Yeah, I was gonna say
man,
the only questions I ask about Florida is where's the beach. But
yeah, that's fair. I'm sorry, Johnny. What did you say?
no, what books were they reading?
So my kids, in general, can read whatever they want.
Oh,
That
so
is
Greg, are you talking about just people, just teachers teaching bringing a book?
So John, do you remember the book To Kill a Mockingbird?
Yes,
Okay, so you remember the content of that book.
yes, I do.
Okay, so that is one of the books that they're saying can no longer be taught because it touches on topics that make people feel uncomfortable.
Ah, isn't that the
Like,
point of learning?
which is the point of the book. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, I mean that is the
Cognitive
point.
dissonance. I took a whole class about it.
Yeah,
But like, God forbid, we allow people to experience that. Like, but that's where you learn. That's where you
Right.
learn.
When you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. So we're nerfing the hell out of our kids.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
that
They don't want their thinking challenged at all because it makes them feel uncomfortable. But that's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to start to think about these things.
so yeah,
And
so this
they
is why
want to
we
take
have
away that.
anxiety in 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
Because they have no idea how to do it.
Well, they get
haven't-
to the real world, or they get to a college that is not banning books and they're
Right.
forced to read things and they go, what? How interracial relationships? What is this about? I never learned about this in high school.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. If any, I know we have a whole 3 people watching us right now. If you guys are interested in making any comments right now, or if you
Asking some
guys,
questions.
ask some questions, let us know. We will certainly answer them with 2 ex-teachers or one current teacher, 1 ex-teacher.
Yeah.
I'm just here
Traitor.
because I look pretty. So
I went corporate. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, so that seems so Nazi-ish.
So
It-
if I like,
yes.
let me add just a little bit. So Florida also challenged like a ton of math textbooks because it talked about like SEL topics, so social emotional learning.
Okay.
And one of them that I looked at, because like that's my content. We don't talk about, like I said, I don't do emotions and feelings
No,
very
no
often.
feelings in math.
No. No, I believe I told our students when Greg and I were teaching together, you could ask Mr. Struley if you are having an emotional problem. That is not my jam. But so one of their textbooks was like kindergarten or first grade, and it was like encouraging the teacher to ask other students how they arrived at an answer and to encourage students to listen and like understand how other people answered the question. And like this is something I do in like the first few weeks of algebra too with ninth graders. Is like, how do you multiply numbers in your head? How do you add numbers in your head? Because the process in everyone's head is a little different. And so it's kind of cool to hear like, oh, I do it by grouping this way, or I do it by multiplying these first, whatever. And Florida got real upset that they were asked to like understand other people's perspectives.
Mhm.
Oh my God.
And I was like, but I need them to understand other people's perspectives, because the alternative is, if there's, this is the way I solve this problem. If I've got, Joe in the back of the room who did it another way, without the understanding that other people might solve this a different way, that kid's just going to go, that's stupid, I did it this way. no, but it's not stupid. It's just another strategy that doesn't.
Yeah,
We arrive at different answers or at the same answer in different ways all the time.
all the time. Yeah.
And I do want to point out, because we are picking on Florida a little bit because they are the
I love
easiest,
that.
most vocal target. This is happening everywhere. So like the math question of like, the big, why did they change math? They didn't change math. They just kind of are explaining it a little bit differently than the way you learned it because it's going to make more sense later on. And they don't want to hear that. So these arguments and pushback is happening in the upper Midwest. So like I said, we're picking on Florida, but it's not just Florida.
Yes, math didn't change.
Yeah.
For the 3 people who are listening, math never changed. We just let people go in whatever direction they want to go, as long as it's mathematically sound. So I always ask kids if it's math legal.
And I was outside of that because I'm not a math teacher and I never claimed to be. So when we taught together, it was interesting because I was almost like the voice of the people in that respect. When these kids would come in or their parents would come in and be like, why is this different? I said, I asked the same question and I was able to explain, okay, so here's what we teach in freshman year and it's changed. Yes, we're not doing whatever skill set the same way we did in the 90s, because what we found out is when they get to trigonometry, do you want your kid to take trigonometry? Yeah, I want my kid to take trigonometry. Okay. When they get there, it's going to help them that we taught it like this here. When they get to trig, it's going to make trig easier. Do you want to make trig easier? Yeah, that makes sense. And then they went away. But some people didn't want to hear that, or some people aren't getting that and internalizing that message. And so they just think we changed math.
Well, it's skill transfer, right? Like I want them to have skills that will transfer to the next class or this or whatever. And instead of teaching it all in like separate silos.
Like what we got, John, when you and I were struggling through math.
Yes. Yeah, we don't need to go through what I went through.
It was a night. Oh, by the way, Daphne, when I was telling you all my college math horror stories, John was right there with me.
Right there.
Like
right
we
there.
were.
Okay.
What's ridiculous, and I'm going to go off on a little side story here, is one time Greg and I had to actually teach the class, and we had no idea what was going on.
That was terrible.
Yes.
Our professor just didn't show up.
And when I say didn't show up,
when I say didn't show up, this was like the 4th time she didn't show up.
Right.
Oh my.
Yeah. It was and the day that we taught, she was there, and there was a student who honestly was having a meltdown, like an issue.
Yeah.
So when you're the only teacher in the room, usually you like somehow get the student out of the room or something like that. But you don't leave the room and then never come back. And so John and I were like, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do? And both being unafraid to talk in front of people.
Yeah.
We stood up and we went, let's go over the homework.
Let's figure this out.
And we wrote it on the board. What'd y'all get? I got this. Did anybody else get anything different?
Yeah.
Okay, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. I to be honest, I don't know how Greg got inspired to become a teacher after that event, but he did.
Because someone had to do it better. I mean, someone had to do it better than Deb. I mean, it had to be better than that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway. Yes. Anyway. Yeah. Fun.
So I don't know where they're going to go with this book banning thing. I know that there are, at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, there's an entire group. I served on their advisory board for a couple of years. The CCBC, it's like the Collective Children's Book Center, I think it was called, and their specialty is in what's called a book challenge. So if any parent comes in and says, we don't want this book taught because it goes against, my morality or whatever it is, schools or anybody, public libraries can use them too. They can go to the CCBC and say, we have a book challenge. What do you have? And then they use the power of the University of Wisconsin and their research abilities to go out and find all of the book challenges on that particular title, and then come back and say, here's all the research that's been done around that, and try to the counter arguments to that parent's objection. And that was cool to be able to sit on that board awesome. and be able to see that.
And maybe I'm just throwing in common sense and nobody has an actual answer for this, but why can't you tell a parent, hey, this makes you uncomfortable because I don't know, it upsets you in some way. Why can't you just parent and work through that with your child?
So I will say, like, I'm friends with a bunch of English teachers, and I will
Okay.
say that this comes up a lot more for them. And they've shifted from everyone must read To Kill a Mockingbird
Right.
to we're gonna learn about this topic, and it might be I have no idea. I know like in like eighth grade they did the Holocaust or
Sure.
whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then there was like 4 books that they could
Mhm.
choose from, and they're like different levels, like reading levels, right? Because you got some kids who are super strong readers, and some who struggle more. But that also opened up the door for if a parent is like, this book is it's too graphic, and like some kids it's traumatic for whatever reason they may have experienced something. Having an alternative is good.
Mhm.
I'm not opposed to having the alternative. And so it opens the door for the teachers to have that like ready-made alternative. It's the like, I don't want my kid to read this, so none of you should read this.
Yeah.
That's where I like really struggle as a parent, as a teacher. Like, your choice for your family shouldn't be dictating the choice for
Correct.
every
Oh,
family.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so like
Absolutely.
that's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
And there,
Yes.
even just to have a copy of a book in a library, that's what gets me. If you don't want it, like you said, kids have more choice with reading than they ever did. I mean, we're going to do a topic. Here's the list of books you can choose from. I think that's great because for all the educational reasons that is a sound practice. But just having the book in the library sitting on the shelf and a parent goes sideways and now the librarian has to register every book in the library because they had one copy of something, that I
Right,
think
one
is,
copy that like may have fit some theme, or it may
yeah,
address I mean, I know this is going to be a shock to everyone, but high schoolers, some of them have sex. Okay, see, I knew it. And so like
Not
not
Timmy.
mine.
no, never. But the fact that there are books in the library that include characters who are considering that
Yeah.
choice and thinking about the options and what does that mean and how does that impact me and like what is the fallout if I choose yes or choose no or whatever. That's super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that what Degrassi Junior High is all about?
Yeah, that wouldn't make it in today's schools.
Yeah, no kidding.
Not a chance.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like it's like we're trying to shelter them from the real world, and it's like when they actually have that life experience in front of them, and they have nothing to go on because they've been bubbled or nerfed.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a danger.
It's going to be, I'm interested to hear, because I've got a daughter going to college next year. Like, what's that? But I know. What the stories that she's going to come back with of maybe someone who now where she's going to school. I don't know if there'll be that many sheltered people, but there's going to be some. There's always going to be some. Like, how are they going to handle that? Like, what's it look like for an 18, 19-year-old in 2023, 2024
Yeah.
to be exposed to the real world and those real world topics,
Consequences.
and what consequences as well, but everything from just choice, like having choice to read what they want, go where they want, no one's going to be kicking them out of bed to get to class. I mean, having that kind of life along with, hey, you're surrounded by people that are not from your culture, or you're going to go to a party and you may see a same-sex couple that you've never seen them out in public before. Like, how are they going to handle that? And I'm interested to see what she comes back with. Like, there's going to be lots of conversations when she comes home for Christmas break, just being like, what'd you see? How'd you handle it? What'd your friends do?
Who's the weirdest? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I would
It's
still ask
going to be
who's
weird.
the-
She's going to college in Madison, so she's going to see some weird shit. I mean, that's just what's going to happen.
That's awesome.
I would think it'd be the same thing as us.
It's going to be a lot of the same thing as us, but you
I
and
was
I
just gonna
knew
say,
about
I mean,
it
we
going
know a
in.
lot of people who didn't get up and go to class, ended up failing out
Yeah.
their first year, drank away the first half of freshman
Or our
year.
first time we ever saw 2 gay guys holding hands walking down the street. I mean, that's all happened to us, where at first we're like, okay, I've never actually seen it live. Okay. Wow, it's not that big of a deal. Okay.
Right.
Well, and I've
No.
said this on the show before. I didn't have my first conversation with an African American until my freshman year of college.
Yeah. We did just fine.
Yeah, I did okay.
We did
Okay,
just fine.
next
Yeah.
topic. Moving on from banning of books, we kind of touched on a little bit government oversight. Now, what's the state of Wisconsin doing right now? Because I'm a little bit out of that. Are they digging in their heels on some of the oversight? I mean,
Hang
the
on,
whole thing-
let's talk about oversight for the people that don't know what's going on. What is oversight?
Okay.
What do you?
So that idea that like I said, you've got professional educators, right?
Mhm.
People that have bachelor's, master's degrees, PhDs, sometimes multiple of each, that they are experts on how to educate the children in a specific age group on a specific topic.
Okay.
But then you have politicians coming in who have never spent a day in the classroom, who have never taken one education class, or if they did, if they were a teacher, they weren't a teacher for very long because they moved into politics.
Okay.
And they're going to make the choices or the decisions on what can and should be taught. And they're superseding the experts in the field. Like, would you go to a nuclear physicist?
Wow, that would really piss me off.
Yeah. Would you go to a nuclear physicist and then say, you know what? I have a bachelor's degree and I have a law degree. I've got
It's all back to the I went to a Holiday Inn.
Yeah, I went to Harvard
Yeah,
Law.
yeah.
This is how you're going to run your nuclear plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Wisconsin hasn't been too wild. I mean, other
Okay.
than we have state standards and teachers were a part of creating those.
Yeah.
I know people get all like weird about Common Core wrecked everything. It didn't. Common Core is a list of when things should be taught so that if your kid has to move to a new state, they're like borderline on par. I don't know if you were still there, Greg. We had a student, I think it was my last year there, so it must have been after you, who like moved from Alabama, and he was a junior in 9th grade algebra. He had never seen math with a letter in it before.
No.
Never.
Oh my God.
So he was 16, 17, never seen math
wow.
with a letter in it. And like,
Wow.
you know, my 4th grader sees that, like they don't teach algebra, but everybody knows how to like 4 plus question mark equals 7. What goes in for, like they can do it, right?
They changed the question mark to an X, which means they're doing algebra in 1st grade.
Yep, they do it all the time. So Common Core fixed that issue more or less. Wisconsin, for the most part, is not coming in and changing curriculum. Like we can still, you know, teach AP everything. Like nobody's telling us we have to change that, which is good. What I'm seeing more of, and like not so much in my district, but like just in conversations with people I know who teach across the state, is like school boards are deciding now, like, oh, well, we need to make it so that we get final say in that curriculum. And like, that's not your role. Your role is to say, hey, thank you, experts, for telling us what the best option is. If you think this is good, we're going to purchase it. Great. Moving on. And so again, it's people who went to school, so they think they know how school works. But like, when was the last time they were in a classroom? If the last time they were in the classroom was more than 5 years ago, the classroom looks different now.
I would even go a step further and say, I don't think half of the district administrators should be making decisions on what curriculum is there. My last year teaching, and you remember who was principal at that point.
I sure do.
Yep.
Still
And no. No. That dude was there. The guy that was the head principal. Yeah. Gotcha. He's not there anymore. He left shortly after I did. He got kicked out.
Sure did.
But that guy who his classroom experience was that he had spent 4 years teaching AP chemistry in a very large district, was telling me that at that point, 15 years of teaching special education was equivalent. Like he knew better on how to teach special ed kids in his experience in AP Chem than I did.
Likely had maybe one special ed kid.
I don't think, I would guess,
maybe.
I don't think in 15 years I had one kid in AP Chem. And not to say it can't happen, but I know I didn't
It's
have that
not common,
experience.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was telling me that he knew better how to teach in my field. And I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. So that's where I'm like, the district administrators or even the building administrator, you need to take the advice of the people that know what they're talking about. And it's usually not you. Unless you taught for a long time in that field, shut up.
What do you think is causing that? Power trips?
A little bit of power trips. I mean, a lot of it comes down to, even with curriculums, it's like budgeting, which
It's
So it's
budgeting.
money.
It's also, I think now it's coming from like outside pressure. Like
Yeah.
they're trying to make it so that we don't, at the teachers, the front line or whatever, isn't getting the complaints from parents saying like, oh, well, I don't want them learning how to do this or that or whatever. Like, so they're trying to take the heat off of us, but it's not all that helpful
Yeah.
because then it hamstrings us.
Do you guys, do you feel currently you're getting more parent pressure than you used to?
So that's hard for me to answer because I'm in a very different demographic
Okay.
in this school district than my last one.
Anybody,
But-
anybody that you know that feels that way, or?
There is a small pocket of very loud dissenters or whatever who are frustrated with everything. And so if you don't do the things the way that they expect you to do them, they're going to make sure that you hear about it, your superior hears about it, everyone all the way up the line.
They probably do the same thing at Starbucks.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it just like trickles down. It is a strange animal to know that every person you're talking to has attended school and therefore thinks they know what school looks like. But very few of them have been or have lived with teachers to know what that looks like. So I used to get emails of like, hey, why haven't you put in my son's algebra test? He took it at 2:30 and it's 6 o'clock. I'm home with my family. I'm not doing that right now. Oh, I expect that turnaround. Like, I don't know why you would expect that. It's very strange. On the other hand, there are also parents who like intrinsically trust that the school will handle all the things. And when their kid is struggling or failing and you could reach out 47 times and the parent will still say, well, like that's a school problem, the school will handle it. Please, for the love of Pete, respond and partner with us so that we can fix this.
Okay.
So we get both sides. It's really odd.
I always got annoyed with, a parent that knew someone on the school board, because then they would try to leverage that. And, I don't care what Ernie, who owns the car dealership on 3rd and is on the school board, I don't care what he thinks how my classroom should run. He has like, go away. Like, you don't belong here. You have no idea what this is like. And here you are sticking your nose in teacher business, or he thinks he knows how classroom management works because he runs a business, and you're like, great, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Because
Yeah. And it's a very different animal, right? Like nobody's paying directly for you to teach their kid or for the kid to be sitting there. So like how I handle my employees is not how 15-year-olds operate.
Nope.
It's just not.
So there was that. And then I was at one district that they literally almost had me shadowing a kid, because the kid's dad was on the school board and the kid was a higher needs student than the norm, I would say. But he was certainly, most of his issues were physical in nature. Like cognitively, the kid was sharp as a tack. And I'm like, I don't need to sit in on his science class. Like, I just don't. He gets it. And I taught him a couple strategies of how to, he got the notes, he got everything. I mean, he was good, but I still had to go and like sit in his classroom and just watch him because the dad was on the school board and the administrators were afraid of him. And I'm like, this is no way to teach his kid. So that happens a lot. I mean, that was a little bit of the oversight that I saw.
That's
So,
frustrating.
Again, folks, what we're talking about here is just kind of like the problems or what a teacher faces every day and how kind of in my opinion, how crazy it's getting at school places where you're taking away the teacher's ability to teach because they have to juggle 1,400 other different things, it seems. So if you guys have any questions on live on Facebook, now's the time to fire them away. All three
Yep.
of you. So
it's gone up and down.
Yeah.
We are going to move to the last topic, but again, so far we've covered school shootings, books banning, government oversight, and now we're going to come into one that's probably gonna either they're going to get loud or they're going to stay quiet because they don't want to ask. There are so many issues surrounding diversity, inclusion, and then I kind of looped into there the LGBTQ plus, because that is one of those hot topics out there of like, how do we handle these kids in our school district? And even the story, and I don't know if you heard this over by you, but I heard it. So I live between two bigger school districts, and one said it was happening. So like Oconomowoc said it was happening in Watertown. Watertown said it was happening in Oconomowoc. That they had heard that there were literally litter boxes kept in the classroom for students that wanted to identify as a cat. And I would have to talk people off a ledge because they were like all up in arms. They can't believe that the school is bowing to this. I said, that's not happening. Yes, it is. It's not happening. So I saw someone who said they saw it. I'm like, if it's not on social media, because that would be all over social media, it's not happening.
My response to that. So my dad told me that at one point. I heard that, and I was like, Dad. As a person who lives in the world, do you think any janitor would be game
Correct.
for cleaning that? Also, do you think any health department would approve it? That's insane. No one would be okay with that.
Right.
So this is great.
It's
So
not
what we're doing here is we're debunking an urban legend.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome.
Because it
Okay.
makes absolutely no sense. I mean, and people pretend like this is brand new. I went to high school with a girl who wore a tail and cat ears often. I know at our school when we were teaching, next door to me, my very favorite math teacher friend, he had a student who wore ears and a tail, and I'm pretty sure she meowed only to him.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
yeah. I do
Yeah.
remember her. Yes.
She did. I swear to you, she only meowed to him. But I think it was only him too. Like I think
It was because I did
think
hear
he
her
made
speak
her
before.
nervous,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Well, he's a big scary guy.
Yes. He doesn't believe that, but yeah, so scary. But anyway, it's not new that a kid might, try to be different in some way, shape, or form.
It's just now we have to pretend that they
that
have a
it's
right,
terrifying?
or no, that they have to. We have to pretend that that's a legit. Like if that person wanted to only be a cat, now it feels like we have to actually give them a space to be a cat.
Well,
So I think that that's also like a bit of a misnomer. I don't think anyone is actually saying, please only treat me like a cat.
Okay.
Maybe kindergartners. And they're weird, and they will change their mind tomorrow, and they'll be a dinosaur, and then they'll be regular, and then they'll be a princess. Like, who knows, right? Like, who knows? What I see more is, students who are trying to figure out who they are, right? Like, if you remember you at 14 or 15 or 16, like, and maybe I'm just overstepping for who I was, but like I was maybe a very different person at 14 than I am now at 40. Like
I was Jean-Claude Van Damme back
thank
then.
God.
Oh, I heard that on your last episode.
Yeah, I was Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I was not a nice person. I was like I was a cheerleader, and I did school well, and I just thought that I was better than everyone. I mellowed a little bit. I mellowed.
As we all do.
But like I think we're talking about like a demographic of people who do not know who they are and who they are going to be. So they try on a lot of things, right? And like 90% of diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, all of that, it's just treat the kid like a human being. I have a homeroom student. We keep our homeroom students all 4 years, and I have one
Oh,
So
nice.
I've known her now for 2 years. Yeah, it's kind of awesome. And last year she went by one name, it was she. This
Hmm.
year she goes by a different name, and it's they. And I don't understand it, and I don't need to. They came up to me, they said,
Hmm.
"This year, can you call me this?" And I was like, "Sure,
Hmm.
okay." Like, I go by they them, but it's okay if you forget. And I was like, sounds good. Great. And to be honest, like, this particular child has been through a significant amount of like family trauma.
Hmm.
I don't know how they are handling that. And this might be one of those coping mechanisms. And you know what? Who am I to stand in the way?
That's a
Like,
really good point. It's a
it
really
takes
good point.
zero effort on my part to refer to them by the name they prefer. I don't care.
It's interesting because teachers have to, I think everybody should fall in the middle of this kind of where you've got a student, and I'm just going to use the cat thing again. You got a student that wears ears and a tail, meows every once in a while, and generally, I think I want to be a cat. And you go, okay. Every time you get on a line, I'm going to squirt you with a water bottle. And they go, well, no, not that much. And you go, okay. And but they just want to be who they are. They want to be a name. They want to wear that. Awesome. Whatever. To the extreme of like, we're keeping litter boxes in our classrooms, and you're going, that's not happening. Like there's a line in there of what's going to be possible and what's not.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because I actually had the argument with my stepmother. Because
Oh,
after
really?
you and I had that talk a while
Yeah, we
ago,
did.
and you broke it down to me, and then I was like, that makes so much sense now. And then I was like having that argument. So every time this comes up, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have you refer to, episode 140, two teachers talking about it
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
I
It's
remember,
it's not a big ask. Like,
no.
90% of the time, it's not a big ask. It's whether it's something that this kid sticks with for the rest of their life or not. It literally doesn't matter. They're in my classroom for maybe a year,
Yeah.
maybe a couple.
Yeah.
If they want me to call them, whatever. I had an English teacher who, for no reason whatsoever, other than she wanted to, called me Barbie. That was not my name. I think I wore pink one day. And so that's what she
That
decided to
was
call
it.
me for a whole year. I wrote it on all my papers. She called me that. I only responded to that in class. I didn't, it didn't stick. It's just a thing. That's what we did.
It
Did
didn't
you
affect
did
it
you
didn't
want to
affect
be
your
called
personality.
Barbie
I
or
truly didn't
she?
care. She just kind of thought it was funny.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
like,
And if you had
oh,
brought it up and went, yeah, I'm not down with that,
just,
she'd
yeah,
go, okay, I got
okay.
to learn your name then.
Yeah.
Um,
I honestly think that Daphne was harder for her to say. She had a bit of a
Little speech
speech
thing.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Barbie was probably easier to pronounce, to be
Okay.
honest.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
whatever.
remember when I taught in middle school, there was a student who physically was a little person. And for Halloween one year, he wore his sister's flower girl dress, and it was hilarious. I mean, the kid was already very funny, and then he walked into school like that, and I'm laughing. And there was a very well seasoned science teacher, and she was pissed. She's like, "We should send him home to change." And I go, "Why?" She's like, "He can't wear that all day." I'm like, "Why not? It's Halloween for one thing. It's a Halloween costume. That's what he's wearing." She's like, "Well, it's inappropriate because he was a boy wearing a dress." And I was like, "Nope. In fact, he can wear that every day of the week if he really wants to, and you can't say a damn thing about it." And she was not happy with me. I didn't care. But I mean, your point as a teacher is not to comment on a student's
Yes.
dress, their look, their name, even if they're coming from a different morality or social background, whatever it is. You're not supposed to care about any of that. Your job is to teach them math, science, history, or whatever class they're taking from you.
Mhm. Yeah. The only time so actually, I should back up. Our dress code for my school changed recently to
Mm,
be far more like genders more or less removed completely.
mhm.
So it's not the like girls must wear. It's like your undergarments can't show, that sort of thing, and it's blanket for everybody. So and it, your swimsuit areas or whatever have to be covered, that sort of thing. So it's super generic. We don't have the like 2 finger wide straps and how
Mhm.
long is your whatever. It's ridiculous. The only things that were ever like dress coding kids over are things that are inappropriate or illegal.
Yeah.
You know, like if I've got a kid with, you know, weed leaves on their shirt or something. Okay, well, you can't wear that to school. I don't care that your mom bought it for you. You can't wear it to school. You know, I try not to get too stressed out when kids, you know, have stuff written on their arms. I mean, I did have to call home for a girl who had, and I will explain it the best way I could, an active penis drawn on her back. And I was like,
Oh,
no, we're not.
you can say
having
hard on this podcast. It's fine.
It was coming.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. In what direction? I'm just kidding.
Over her shoulder.
Was it like
I
on the
was like,
shoulder and, you know?
what?
Or was it like
No.
hand on side?
Wow. So she what, had like a
So I
back,
like call
a
home
backlit
and
dress or something?
yeah, like so she was wearing like a tank top and someone probably, you know, one of her
Oh, just
friends
drew it on
wearing
there?
one of her
Wow.
Oh,
drew
okay.
it.
Wow.
Oh, I thought you
And
meant it
was
was on
like,
her shirt.
"Hey,"
It was
no,
artistic.
literally
What-
drawn on her body. I was like, "Hey,
I'd
do you know what's on
love
your back?"
to
And she was
have
like,
that happen
"Yes."
to our house. Like my daughter comes, I'd be like, what the hell? I never thought I'd get a call like this, you know?
Okay, but here's the best part. That
Yeah.
dad was like, "Yeah, we let her express herself."
Oh
artistically."
God.
I was
See,
like,
and
I can, I mean, I explained it as best I could,
Mhm.
without embarrassing us all. And I was like, that's fine. That's not appropriate for school.
No, it's not.
It's just
Wow.
not like,
But
sorry,
and then
dude.
again, but there are schools that go in the other direction. I have a niece that goes to a school. They don't allow like sweatpants in the school.
Yeah, I've
Like
heard that.
it's they're like, well, children just can't learn in that relaxed environment. And I'm like, have you ever been to college? I mean, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Right?
Yeah.
Like when I would roll up
What-
in the same pajama pants 3 days in
Exactly.
a row. I mean,
It-
I changed my shirt. Thank you.
You changed the one shirt, but maybe not the hoodie that
But
you've
not
been
the hoodie
wearing
that
for a
went
week
over.
straight. I mean, that's yeah, I don't
That's
don't
interesting.
I don't get that. I mean, and the answer is kids learn in whatever they're comfortable in. But yeah, the
But
the
that's
ejaculating
the important
penis,
thing.
you know, on somebody's shoulder, that might
Too
be
much. That was too
yeah,
much. That was too much.
that's over there.
But like
And
you said a really important word there. The kids have to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Like they can't be terrified that the teacher's going to call them out for something. They
Mhm.
can't be you know, so concerned about what the people around them are thinking or doing or saying or whatever. Like I think we try really hard to make it so that kids can be functional human
Mhm.
beings in our schools. And all of this like extra nitpicky stuff isn't really a problem for
Yeah.
us, right? Like I don't, if that kid wants to be Sam today and Samantha tomorrow, whatever, fine. Write it on your paper, I'll figure it out.
Mhm.
Just write your last name too, just in
I
case.
like that.
Just write down your code number and we're
Yeah.
good.
I'll figure
You're
it
not a
out.
name to me, you're a number.
I like that. You got anything else, G?
Not really. I think we've covered all the topics. We're about at an hour. Very sorry our other guest wasn't able to show up. So express to her that
No.
we've
Hope
been
she's
terrible.
okay in terms of
Yeah.
he or her. I don't.
It was a girl. Yeah.
It was a girl. Hope she's traveling, like she's safe traveling. I do have a question for you in terms of active shooters. Do you think there should be more training, or do you even want there to be more training throughout the year of how to do that? Because I'm very much on this opinion that you can train in a perfect scenario all the time, or you can train in like that blank thing. That sounded like a fantastic idea, because now for the first time you actually heard what it sounds like in a hallway, and it scared you. And I think that's important, because the next time it happens, you'll absolutely know what that was, and there's a less stress involved in that. Or maybe I shouldn't say that. Your stress will probably be high, because what the hell is that happening for? You
Yeah.
know. So
Right. I would say I think that it would be the best if there was any sort of level of consistency.
okay.
Like I've been in 4 different high schools in my career. That's not a lot, to be honest, but the response is different in all of them, and it should be, because the buildings look different and there's different
Yes.
rendezvous points and all of that. But the who says what and who releases this and who does that, like any sort of level of this is what a response looks like, would be fantastic. And I don't know who's supposed to coordinate that. But the one thing I did like about the shooting the blanks terrifying drill was that our police department was there kind of running it and saying, this is what it would look like if you called us, we would do this, then we would do that. Like that was helpful for us. Because I don't know what door police officers have access to. Who's supposed to let them in? I don't even know. I don't know.
That's
Who's doing that?
Okay, so you would think more training like that was helpful that day.
Yeah,
terrifying but helpful.
Yeah, something where there was and here's what the expectations would be. I think when we practice all of these different options, like you come up with things that sound good in the moment but are also completely insane. We talked about breaking windows and I'm not breaking a window. I'm not breaking a window.
That was the last year when you and I talked together. That was the plan, and we were on a second floor.
What was the plan?
Break the window and drop the kids out the window.
Okay, sounds.
And we were on a second floor.
If you're second floor,
they're looking at that. They're like, well, it's not that high. They won't die. Like that fall's not going to kill them.
That was a conversation we all had, and then we were like, okay, and then we have to get a mile down the road to the rendezvous place.
Yeah.
Like, okay, but how many students do we have now that I can't carry a high school kid for a mile, especially if they have a broken freaking leg now?
Well, obviously you need to add that into your training.
And
I guess I need to sandbag train.
Because we had a student who, for some weird medical reason, stopped walking. Like she lost the use of her legs. And I was like, at first I thought she had just like hurt herself in like an athletic. And then she's like, no, I just woke up and I couldn't walk. I'm like, well, when does that go away? She's like, don't know. Oh my God. So then we had to have conversations, and I'm talking with, admin and the police. I'm like, so what happens if we've got like the fire drill or the shooter or whatever? And the common thing at that point was, you might have to leave her. What? That was, I was told, if it's the 30 students and everybody else or her, you're going to have to take care of the group and not the one. I was like, holy shit. And I was like, no. That's
right. But also, no, I can't do it. And I think in the end, like we want to know what the options are. I don't know that there's ever going to be you did all the things right. Like if things go sideways and somebody comes into a school and it intends to do harm, they're going to do harm. Yeah. I don't know that any amount of training can stop that. And I don't know that any amount of training is going to get me to be able to flip the switch to not. I mean, honestly, I have 2 kids in a family. Like self-preservation is still there. Because I don't teach really young kids, I don't feel that same, like I must protect all of them. Like I said, most of them are bigger than me. I had, Greg, remember the kid that ended up he brought a bullet to school?
That was my kid.
Yeah. There was a kid in that same class that was like, if he does that again, I'll protect you. And I was like, no, that's okay. You just, I'm good. But like they all can and like they all have their own plans too. So I don't know.
See.
I want to say we can fix it.
What are your thoughts on
we can fix it? We can fix it because guns, but
And you said like if someone's going to come into school intending to do harm, they're going to do that. But certainly if they don't have a firearm, that's going to certainly decrease the amount of damage that they can do, because the plans that we're talking about, every single plan is a reaction to a situation. There's been no the proactive approach or trying to stop it before it happens. You can't train for that. There's nothing you can do other than just try to recognize that the kid's having an issue of it. But like you said, if they're going to come in, they're going to come in with the intention to do harm. But you hear about the kids, they can't get a hold of a gun, so they bring a knife. They cut some kids, maybe and stab a couple. Most of those kids live, and the assailant is apprehended. Harmed, yes, they are apprehended, they're harmed, but they're alive. And then you can start to get them into therapy and figure out what was going through your head and start to analyze that. Where if it's a shooter, they're gonna die.
Easy access to weapons that can take out a lot of people all at once is part of the problem?
I think it is. And this is coming from someone who I believe in the Second Amendment right, but I also believe that there are things we can do that support both.
Yeah, I think for sure there is a happy medium to that. My last question, what are your thoughts on, actually both of you? I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'm sure you have, that Texas lady that got with that company that designed panic rooms in her classrooms.
Yeah.
Why are you guys laughing about that? Like, explain that. That seems like a great idea to me.
I got two problems with it.
Sure.
Number one, that's got to be expensive as hell.
Okay.
And they don't have money to buy new textbooks. You're telling me they're going to install those. Number two, some classrooms are already really small and we're trying to shoehorn 30 kids in there and you want to give up a quarter of that space for a panic room? I got questions.
No, the panic room that pulls out.
Yeah.
Like it's against a wall.
Yeah, but it's still going to take about a foot of room.
Once you pull it out, right? Is what you're talking about? Or are you talking about as
as it's flat against the wall? Yeah. I mean,
right. It's gotta have some.
It still has like this much. Like
this is a wonderful math problem that you should integrate into your lesson of like, okay, here's the dimensions of a panic room. So when we flatten it, how much of that space is going to take over? When it's flat on the wall, it's still going to come out of the wall like at least that much, because
and I don't know. I could just imagine how many students would, like, if they were sitting next to it, would be like poking holes in it. Yeah. Like if they're in a geometry class, they're stabbing it with a compass all day, every day. Like, is it going to be rigid enough? We had little gimmicky things at our last school that had like ropes that like hooked to the doorknobs and you could like lock them down. And it seemed like super simple and it should have worked perfectly. But, you know, when kids get up, they move around the room, they would futz with the lock things. And then they would, mine got locked to the point where I couldn't unlock it. And so when we had to do a drill, I couldn't use mine because I couldn't open it to put the rope around the doorknob to latch it tight. It was insane. But like all those things, I mean, if we're gonna do something, test run them in a room of 30 teenagers.
Yeah.
And then tell me how it works.
With desks that are literally from the very front of the room all the way butting up to that thing. Mm-hmm. Like when she did it, it was a big open space that she like unfolded this like.
Never seen a classroom with that much space in it.
Yeah, neither have I, and I've never taught in one. And not to mention that half the rooms that I taught in were former file rooms or closets. Like I didn't get a full size classroom until I think my third or fourth building.
Wow.
What? Like a closet space?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. He wouldn't have a whole classroom full of kids.
Yeah.
Like,
they didn't give it
30 at once.
A special ed room was not.
So you had like 3
size classroom. Oh, I would have like there was room like I would have seats for 8, you know, but it with the 8 in my room, it was.
Are you exaggerating when you say closet space? Because when I'm thinking of a closet, if you guys are telling me the rooms are small, I can only imagine what the closets are.
Her math room was a regular classroom for sure.
Okay.
But in one of the classrooms, like it wasn't even a classroom, it was an office. Like I didn't have a classroom. It was just an office where I was expected to work with kids in at most like 4-on-1. And if it was 4-on-1, that meant they were sitting at other teachers' desks that I shared an office with. And there was one school I was at, I think the second school I was at, where the day I got there on like new teacher day, I had to go to the janitor and be like, can you take file storage off my door? Because no one's going to find my room. I was down at the very end of a hallway and it was literally a file room until they cleared it out and threw a couple tables in there.
Wow.
So, but that's the other thing, like the panic room thing is set up for a classroom. A classroom, I have questions, classroom of how many, right? Like, because some of our classes, like elementary school is like 20-24. I sit at 26 to 30 sometimes.
But some high school classes are getting up to 40.
Yeah.
Depending on the class.
But then also, like, what about band?
What band? What about gym? Where gym is 80 kids.
what if you're at lunch? What if you're in like the library? What if you're in a special ed classroom? Like I think a lot of times people who think they know what school looks like only know what their experience in school was.
Or
And
I mean, you guys you made up a great point there with the like lunch and gyms and that. I think that people design just a classroom.
And
right, like choir's got 80 people. Where are you putting them?
Yeah. And in a new school, like if you're in a district that's building a brand new school, classrooms are like the last thing that get designed. They're designing these common learning spaces where it's almost like a foyer area where you can put all these learning pods and kids can move around from station to station.
Or the like collapsible walls. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah. Those paper
Yeah.
thin pieces of shit. Absolutely.
yes.
All right. Well, you guys
So it's
have given me
terrible idea.
You guys have definitely opened my eyes to what teachers go through. I don't know how. What's your rate on alcoholics?
I think that I know a lot of them.
Yeah. I don't know.
Talk to them every Friday night.
There was, teacher happy hour is definitely a thing.
Yeah. Okay. Greg, I'm good. Are you?
Yeah. This has been fun.
Daphne,
Thanks, guys.
thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to two middle-aged guys that, well, Greg, you have more experience in this than I do, but definitely opened my eyes to what's going on.
I wanted to know how it's changed because I haven't been in that classroom setting in like I said, about 7 years. So, as always, Daphne, fantastic to talk with you.
I know, it's good to see you.
Yeah. So as you're going through your week, we're coming up we're getting to a point where a lot of people get to visit family as we've got a major holiday coming up here in the US. So if you're going through that and you're stressing out about it, maybe your kids are going to be on spring break this week, going to be driving up the stress a little bit. Just remember, as you're going from day to day, don't be a douche.
There you go. So for Daphne, the Greg, this is Johnny saying, take care, have fun, have a good week. Podcast out, everybody. Take care.